All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving deep, and it's going to get kind of intense.
Knuckle up.
We're talking about divorcing a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
And to help us all navigate this, well, let's be honest, it's a minefield.
Yeah.
We've got some incredible insights from the experts over at the Narcissistic Abuse Network.
Really good resource.
Yeah, I mean, think of this deep dive as like your strategic playbook.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously not legal advice, right? But giving you the inside scoop on how narcissism, how it actually plays out in court.
Yeah, really important.
Because let's be real, knowing your opponent's moves, that could save you time.
Oh, yeah.
Save you money.
For sure.
And a whole lot of heartache.
Absolutely. And here's something that's kind of a paradox.
Okay.
Narcissists, they're often drawn to all the drama.
Oh, yeah, they love attention.
They love the attention. But they actually really dread the courtroom.
Oh, that's interesting.
Seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does. You'd think they'd relish that chance to like hold court, so to speak. What gives?
Well, it really boils down to control. So imagine someone whose entire identity is built on being superior.
Right.
Always.
Right.
Always the one in charge. And now picture them in court.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly they're subject to a judge's authority.
Right.
They could actually lose.
Wow.
That is terrifying to them.
So it's not just about the legal outcome,
Right.
It's about their ego. Like their ego's taking a massive hit.
You got it. That's the narcissistic injury in action. So to them, losing control, being judged like by someone else's, it's unthinkable.
Right.
It just shatters that very carefully constructed self-image.
So that's huge for anyone going through this. Like that's a crucial insight.
Huge.
So your narcissistic ex, they might be putting on a brave face.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But underneath, you're saying they're likely terrified.
Yes.
And knowing that gives you a strategic advantage. So you can kind of anticipate their moves, avoid the traps.
For sure. And to really understand those moves, we need to break down what we call the 3 stages, the 3 stages of legal hell.
Okay, all right.
So we've got negotiation, mediation, and then financial dispute resolution.
Okay.
Each stage, I'm telling you, it presents unique challenges, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist.
All right, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
First up, negotiation. So what kind of tactics should someone expect during this phase? And for those of you who have been through this, see if any of this rings a bell.
Yes.
Right.
Well, first and foremost, true negotiation. It's not in a narcissist's playbook.
Okay.
It's about dictating,
Okay.
delaying, refusing to compromise. They might demand the impossible.
Okay.
Like they might want that antique vase that's
Yeah.
been in your family for generations, even though they've never shown any interest in it before.
Right.
Or they might agree to something reasonable,
Right.
but then pull back at the last minute.
Force you to scramble. And then you concede.
Oh, God.
Just to keep things moving.
I've heard about this. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they get a thrill out of like throwing a wrench in the works,
Yeah.
keeping you off balance.
Yeah. It's a power play. It's all about power. Their goal is to wear you down. Financially.
Oh, wow.
Emotionally. They know the longer this drags on, the more likely you are to just give in.
It's so manipulative. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why finding a solicitor who understands this dynamic is crucial.
It is essential. You need someone who can see through these tactics.
Right.
Knows how to counter them effectively. Now, a specialist might seem more expensive up front,
Right.
but they'll probably save you money and definitely stress in the long run. Think of it as an investment.
That's such a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in those costs, like right now.
Right.
But you have to think long term.
Long term. Now, let's talk about mediation.
Okay.
This is another area where things can get really complicated.
Standard mediation, where both parties are supposed to work towards a solution.
Right.
This often backfires with a narcissist.
Wait, hold on. You're saying that mediation can actually work against the victim?
It can.
But isn't the whole point to find some common ground?
Well, in theory, yes.
Okay.
But for a narcissist, mediation, it's just another stage
Okay.
to manipulate and control. They'll use it to grandstand. They'll twist the facts,
Oh, gosh.
further their agenda, and they're so convincing that even experienced mediators, they can get taken in.
So they're using the system, like the system itself, against their ex-partner.
It happens all the time.
That's chilling.
It is. And that's why, again, it's so important to have a solicitor who really understands these dynamics and can advocate for you.
Now, I remember you mentioned something, I think it was called hybrid mediation earlier.
Yeah.
What is that exactly? How is it different?
So hybrid mediation it's kind of a blend. It brings together family law's focus on relationships with commercial law's emphasis on finding like practical solutions. And what makes it really intriguing for these kinds of cases is that the mediators, they have specific training in handling high conflict personalities.
Okay.
They can see through all that manipulation
Right.
and keep things on track.
So they're like a referee who's specifically trained to deal with rule breakers.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. But it still sounds incredibly challenging.
It can
Right.
be. It absolutely can be. And while hybrid mediation, it may offer maybe a more constructive path in some cases, it's not a magic bullet. Ultimately, the final hearing, that's often the only point where the narcissist's power is truly limited.
So in part 2, we are going to delve deeper into that final hearing, the role of supporters, and what you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones throughout this difficult process.
So welcome back, everyone.
All right, so before the break, we were talking about how standard mediation can actually backfire.
Especially when you're dealing with a narcissist.
It's true.
And for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I need to get a lawyer like right now, how do you even find a solicitor who gets it? Like, who specializes in these types of cases?
Such a good question, and honestly, it's one of the most important steps you can take.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask very specific questions during those consultations.
Oh.
Like, for instance, ask about their experience with, high conflict personalities. What's their understanding of narcissistic tactics? You want someone who's not going to be intimidated or fooled by all those maneuvers.
So it's not just about finding someone who, knows family law.
Right.
It's about finding someone who knows narcissists.
You got it.
Okay.
And here's another thing to remember.
Okay.
A narcissist-savvy solicitor, they might actually be able to help you strategize in a way that avoids court altogether.
Oh, wow.
They might be able to negotiate a settlement that really protects your interests without having to go through a full-blown trial. Oh, that's a relief to hear.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine just the thought of facing your narcissistic ex in court is terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
That can be very, very frightening.
Yeah.
But even if you do end up in court, which sadly is often the case,
Right.
reaching that final hearing, that's when the narcissist's power actually starts to diminish.
So that's because the judge is calling the shots, right?
Got it.
Okay.
Remember what we were talking about earlier? About narcissistic injury? The courtroom, it's one of the few places where their facade, their carefully crafted facade, it can be challenged.
Yeah.
They can't control the judge.
Right.
And they can't manipulate the legal process as easily
Right.
as they might have manipulated you in the past.
So it's like they're finally being held accountable.
In a way, yes. And for victims of narcissistic abuse, that can be incredibly validating.
Okay.
Of course, it doesn't erase the pain or the trauma, but it can be a real turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know the source material we have from the Narcissistic Abuse Network. Right.
They focus on the UK legal system, but I'm guessing these dynamics, they probably play out similarly
Oh, yeah.
in other countries as well.
Absolutely. The specific laws and procedures might vary, but the underlying psychology, the tactics, those are universal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of the emotional toll this takes,
Oh, yeah.
our source material mentions a really sobering point. The potential for suicidal thoughts in victims
Right.
of narcissistic abuse.
Yeah.
This is serious stuff. And if you're going through this, please know you're not alone.
You're not.
And there is help available.
There is. And it's so important to remember that
Yeah.
divorcing a narcissist can feel like a battle for your very survival.
Right.
And it's essential to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the role of supporters, like friends, family, anyone who cares about the person going through this.
Yeah.
Because even if you're not directly involved in a legal battle,
Yeah.
there's a lot you can do
Absolutely.
to help.
Right. And the first step is really understanding what they're going through.
Okay.
Because narcissists are masters of gaslighting,
Right.
making their victims doubt their own reality,
Yeah.
their own sanity.
That's awful.
So just simply believing them, validating their experience, it can be so powerful.
So it's not about trying to fix the situation
Right.
or offer legal advice. It's about offering emotional support.
Exactly. Just saying, I believe you. What you're going through is real. It's tough and it's not your fault. That can be a lifeline.
It's so true because victims of narcissistic abuse, they've been told for so long
Yes.
that they're overreacting, that they're imagining things.
It's all in their head.
It's so hard to trust your own perceptions at that point.
Absolutely. So having someone who just sees them, who believes them,
Yeah.
it can be transformative.
What about like practical help? Like
Yeah.
what are some tangible things
Yeah.
that friends and family can do? Oh, there's so much: offering childcare, helping with errands, preparing meals.
Right.
Even just being there to listen without judgment.
Yeah.
Remember, the narcissist is probably trying to drain their energy on every level.
Okay.
So even small acts of assistance can make a huge, huge difference.
Because even things that seem simple, like, sorting through paperwork or making phone calls,
Right.
can feel overwhelming
Absolutely.
when you're already emotionally exhausted.
Absolutely.
Right.
And here's another important point. Resist the urge to give unsolicited advice.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Unless you've actually been through this specific type of divorce.
Yeah.
It's hard to grasp the complexity of it.
So instead of saying, like, you should do this or why don't you try that?
Right.
Just listen with empathy.
Yes. Sometimes just being a sounding board, allowing them to vent, allowing them to process.
Right.
That's way more helpful than trying to offer solutions. And on that note, encourage professional help.
Okay, so therapy, support groups.
Exactly. These resources can provide, tools and coping mechanisms that friends and family may not be equipped to offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember, healing, it goes beyond just the legal aspects.
Right.
It's a journey of reclaiming your sense of self, rebuilding your life on your own terms.
So we've talked about, like, the legal strategies, the emotional impact, and the crucial role of supporters. But before we move on, I just want to emphasize that there is hope.
Absolutely.
As difficult as this journey is, it's not a dead end.
It's not.
Yeah.
Reaching that final hearing, as daunting as it may seem, is often the turning point, and that's where the scales start to balance out.
It's interesting. We've been talking about the final hearing as this pivotal moment where the narcissist's power finally starts to fade.
Right.
But I'm curious about what happens after that.
Yeah.
Because even if the legal battle is over, I mean, the emotional scars,
Oh, for sure.
they can linger.
Absolutely. That's such an important point. The final hearing, it might mark the end of the legal process, but it's really just the beginning of the healing journey. Recovering from narcissistic abuse, it takes time.
Right.
It takes self-compassion.
Yeah.
And often professional support.
And I imagine it's not like a linear process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are probably setbacks, moments where you feel like you're taking 2 steps back for every 1 step forward.
Absolutely. Healing isn't a straight line. There will be triggers. There will be moments of doubt, maybe even anger, grief resurfacing, and that's all perfectly normal.
Okay.
The key is to be patient with yourself. Acknowledge those feelings without judgment.
Yeah, the source material from the Narcissistic Abuse Network, they really emphasize the importance of self-care
So important.
during this phase. And it's not about being selfish.
Right.
It's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. Imagine you've just run a marathon.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to jump right back into training the next day.
No.
You need time to rest, replenish, rebuild your strength. Healing is very similar.
So what are some self-care practices that you'd recommend?
Well, therapy is often a crucial part of the healing process.
Okay.
It provides that safe space to process your experiences, to challenge those negative thought patterns, to develop healthy coping mechanisms. Support groups can also be incredibly beneficial.
Okay.
Connecting with others who've been there
Right.
can help you feel less alone, less isolated.
And I imagine things like mindfulness, meditation, even creative outlet
Oh, absolutely.
can play a role.
Absolutely. Finding healthy ways to manage that stress and anxiety is essential. It might be reconnecting with old hobbies that you abandoned during the relationship.
Yeah.
Spending time in nature, journaling, whatever, brings you a sense of peace.
One thing that really struck me in the source material was this idea that recovering from narcissistic abuse, it can actually lead to some pretty profound personal growth.
It's true.
It's like you've been through a fire and you come out stronger, more resilient, with a deeper understanding of yourself and your boundaries.
It's almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Right.
It's a powerful metaphor because after experiencing something so toxic, you develop this heightened awareness of red flags, a stronger sense of self-worth.
Okay.
You really learn to prioritize your own well-being.
So it's not just about surviving.
Right.
It's about thriving.
Exactly. And that's what I find so inspiring about this work. Even in the darkest of situations,
Yeah.
there is the potential for transformation
That's really powerful.
and empowerment.
Yeah. So for anyone out there who is navigating the complexities of divorcing a narcissist,
Yeah.
or even just starting to heal from that experience,
Yeah.
please know you're not alone.
You're not.
This deep dive has been about equipping you with insight,
Absolutely.
not just information.
Yeah.
And we've explored the legal landscape, the emotional toll, the power of support.
Yes.
And we've also highlighted just the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
Absolutely.
If there's one final thought we want to leave you with, it's this: knowledge is power.
It is.
And in this situation, it can be the key to reclaiming your life
Yeah.
and building a brighter future.
Couldn't agree more.
So if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, I mean, we encourage you to explore the resources that are available through the Narcissistic Abuse Network.
Please do.
They've got a ton of information on their website.
Yes.
Articles, podcasts, support groups. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone.
You don't?
Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
on this deep dive.
It's been great.
Until next time, keep learning,
Keep growing
keep growing,
and keep taking care of yourselves.